Redditors who have been on a reality TV show such as Hardcore Porn or Pimp My Ride or Porn Stars. How fake was it? I worked on a cruise ship when they filmed Undercover Bosses. The CEO pretended to be doing a documentary and had various crew members train him for a few hours. While no one was expressly told what the gig was, the show had already been going on for a year, so we all sort of knew what was up. When they were doing the shooting, he claimed to stay in a crew cabin to get a real feel for how it was to be a crew member. Not only did they use a passenger cabin in the shot, he didn't even stay there. He stayed in the grand penthouse. When they did the reveal that he was actually the CEO, they did like 5 shots of the crew's surprise. His big gesture at the end was $150,000 towards crew welfare, pays for parties, day trips, etc. It came to like $8 per crew member when you consider how many crew members there are. Those that were featured, and even one who got cut from the show, on my ship did get an all-expense-paid European cruise, so that was nice for them at least, provided they wanted to go on a cruise on their vacation from working on a cruise ship. While at a bar in NYC, someone approached my dad and his buddy asking if they wanted to be on a gourmet cooking show. Naturally, they agreed and asked if I, 14 years/show at the time, could join. The promoter said of course, gave them the location, and told them to tell me not to eat a big lunch as this would be a large multi-course meal at an upscale restaurant. I skipped lunch that day after a rough lunchtime soccer match, and left school early to meet my father and his friend. We arrived in a strange part of Manhattan, near the Hudson, in a rather dead part of the city. We got a call from the producer saying, "Sorry man. Wrong location. We're sending a car to pick you up immediately." We hopped into a taxi and boom, you're on cash cab. The bald-headed host declared as lights flashed above our heads. So, we lost, got kicked out in Chelsea, and ended up spending our own money on food and a taxi home. Very upsetting frown. I actually have 3. A friend of mine was on The Bachelor. This was years ago and she ended up being one of the last 4 girls. She said they were constantly fed alcohol, were put on a strict sleep schedule where they were literally put to bed and woken up. Also, there were no clocks anywhere, so all the girls were in the constant state of alcohol-fueled disorientation. There were no chance encounters where the guy is sitting on the couch and the girl goes up to talk to him, all of that is staged. Even their conversations were reshot over and over if the reactions weren't right or their wording was off. The entire thing was completely controlled and she said no one really knew the guy because none of their interactions were real. A friend of mine's house was on House Hunters. He wasn't on the show himself, but his house was the one that was picked. And yes, it was sold and all the paperwork was signed before they filmed. He was there when they filmed all the segments but wasn't allowed to be on camera. My wife was on America's Got Talent. She was a dancer for her friend's act. She said they lived in a tent for 4 days in the parking lot. She had a very positive experience. She said she met a lot of cool people and that it did feel genuine for the one episode she was on. Her friend made it through the round but got eliminated the following week. Deleted. I was on Made on MTV. Everything was pretty real. The show was a bit on rails. We couldn't go anywhere without asking MTV, they would then have to get the proper permits to film. Phone calls are all fake because we had to use the producer's phone. He'd basically call us and say X is going to call you and you have to say Y. Producers were real fucking cool so we could kind of tell if we were doing something they liked and we sort of faked it ourselves without any network guidance. We honestly just wanted to make a good episode of TV. I can write so much about this, they filmed for months. But I feel like this is too far down for people to care. Undercover Boss. They came to our place, interviewed employees and picked the ones they wanted to do the show. It was obviously a TV crew and we all knew what show. The person they picked was a jerk that worked up a stupid sob story for the cameras about barely affording to get by or whatever. If you haven't realized it, Undercover Boss is just an hour-long commercial. I also know someone that was on a History Channel program about Nostradamus, forgot the show's name. He said the show edited so much footage to make it look like he was talking about things he wasn't talking about. They ask a few hours of questions and then build their narrative from that. I was on Jerry Springer. The episode never aired, but the entire thing was fake. They even asked me to find friends to complete the storyline of the double love triangle. Coolest part of it all was when they literally asked me if I wanted a fake doctor's note or a fake death certificate made out in a fake family member's name in order to get me out of work. They literally had a guy on staff whose only job was to get people out of work so they could attend filming. I'm a little late, but my family was on World's Strictest Parents. We hosted 2 rebellious teenagers in our allegedly really strict home. No clue why they picked us. BC, we aren't psychos like most of the families I've seen on a show. Anyways, the producers were bummed. BC, the kids actually liked us and we got along with them, so the producers had to go up to the kids and convince them to get angry for no reason and cause drama. It was kind of pathetic. We're still close with the 2 teenagers and talk to them often. My best friend's sister was on the People's Court about 10 years ago. The lawsuit was real, as it was between her and a neighbor she was sort of friends with, but the producers had them embellish many details, gave them lines, and they used clever editing to make them look like they were arguing and such. In one bit, my friend's sister was reading a text message the other girl had sent, and they spliced around it to make it seem like she was insulting her there in the courtroom, and Judge Millian chewed her out, which apparently was an insert filmed later. They filmed about an hour's worth and it was edited down to 21 minutes. All 4 of us watched the show the afternoon it aired. Seeing their reaction to shit they edited and pieced together was great. My dad's best friend was the dude from the What's in the Bag skit at Hardcore Porn. He said he was in line just to walk around and look. A guy came up and asked him if he wanted to make $50 doing a skit for the show along with the dude behind him. He was like, fuck yeah, why not? So they put the black guy in a thong thing and paid him $100 to get into the bag, have my dad's buddy drag him in and act like he wanted to sell the bag. They told him to act like a nut job on crack or some kind of drug, which my dad's friend always reminded me of a dude on crack. We've watched the YouTube of the skit a million times. My friend was on Shop. They open their ingredients twice. First to decide their meal, and the second for the camera. They still have to act surprised for the camera though. Had a friend on an MTV show where one person goes on a date with 2 different people at the same time and they try and create conflict between the 2 daters and make them fight for the one person. He said that it took forever to shoot because they were told to be themselves, but they both absolutely hated the girl and kept making fun of her, so there was very little conflict, so they finally had to script things in for them to say. My friend won the real date with the girl and she did give him her number, but he said no thanks and went and got drunk with the other guy, where they continued just making jokes about the lady. Several years ago, my cousin went in for a tattoo at the shop from Inked. The one in Vegas. It was an off-filming day, so none of the artists from the show were in. He got his tattoo started, and they asked him to come back in a few weeks when it was healed up to schedule an appointment to finish it. When he showed up, filming for the season was finished. The shop was closed, cleaned out, and the space was for sale. Had a friend who was on MTV's Catfish. The guy who was catfishing her was the one who applied for them to be on the show. They barely talked/knew each other prior to signing up and had to force some fake conversations so they could be used on the show. I'm way too late on this, so I doubt many people will see it. But I went on the doctor's show after my whole man with no butt crack story went viral. See my top post history for more info. Got a call from CBS a couple days after everything went down, and they asked me to come out to California for their What the Health segment. Everything on the actual set was real. Essentially just an interview. But the little montage backstory beforehand was completely set up and fake. They rented a house to pretend it was mine. They asked me to act like I was in more pain than I really was. I had walk around the pool that I don't own and reflect on my difficult life. It was super awkward for someone with zero acting experience. But it was also a ton of fun. They flew my wife and I out for free, put us up in the Roosevelt Hotel, and gave us a certain spending amount every day for reimbursement. They didn't pay me anything, but they did reimburse me for lost wages from work since I had to be out there for a few days. All in all, it was really cool because I essentially got a free vacation for my wife and I, all expenses paid. Plus, we got to go on a legit television set, which was pretty cool.
With